There's a huge wave of horny washing over us.
Where they're not politically biased in any way whatsoever.
I'm married to Luigi's AI.
How they are going to start changing around the narrative.
It was very touching.
That's their JFK moment.
Well, we combine those things when we figure out what our values are. All right, people, we live. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's September 18th, 2025. I'm not even going to tell you where you're watching the show today. If you're sitting at a computer watching it, you probably know what website you're on, so congratulations for that. 10-second promo, daverubin.com/events. If you want to join me in Australia in October, there's an image that shows that. And let's dive in because we have a very exciting show. You know, it's obviously been an extremely difficult week. Was it a week ago today? Was it Thursday? I think it was Thursday. Oh, no, it was Wednesday maybe. So it was 8 days ago today that really it does feel like the world has completely changed. And the fallout of Charlie's assassination, I think, is going to have ramifications that we are going to quite literally see for decades in America. And the wake up and all of those things and the media reaction and all the stuff. It's obviously been an incredibly difficult 8 days. You know, I was playing basketball last night, and one of the guys that I play ball with, who I don't know particularly well, right before we started, he came up to me and he said, "I'm sorry for your loss." And he had this just sadness in his eyes. And it was like, wow, this thing, like, I have no idea this guy's politics. I didn't even know if he knew that I'm Dave Rubin of this thing. Like, and it was just like, this thing is just deep and real. And as I said, it's going to be stickier than other things. So we are going to deal with some of the fallout today. And I think I can do it finally, hopefully in a little more of a humorous way, because Jimmy Kimmel, blackface, racist, hateful Jimmy Kimmel, who has been paid millions and millions of dollars a year for many years to have a quote-unquote comedy show. Well, it looks like he doesn't have it anymore. Before I read the quote, can we find out how much money this guy's been making per year to be a corporate comic? Listen to this from Fox News. Jimmy Kimmel Live will be preempted indefinitely, a Disney spokesperson said. Nexstar Media Group, which owns hundreds of television stations, announced earlier it would preempt Kimmel's show on its ABC affiliates starting Wednesday night for the foreseeable future and would replace it with other programming over his comments about alleged Charlie Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson. Mr. Kimmel's comments about the death of Mr. Kirk are offensive and insensitive at a critical time in our national political discourse, and we do not believe they reflect the spectrum of opinions, views, or values of the local communities in which we are located, Nexstar's broadcasting chief Andrew Alford said in a press release. Continuing to give Mr. Kimmel a broadcast platform in communities we serve is simply not in the public interest at the current time, and we have made the difficult decision to preempt his show in an effort to let cooler heads prevail as we move toward resumption of respectful, constructive dialogue. Okay, so as you know, this is bringing up all sorts of conversations around cancel culture and hypocrisy and a whole bunch more. We will get to that in just a minute. I am being told the guy makes $16 million per year. And how many years has he been hosting that show? Like, this guy has cashed in by demonizing half the country, the president of the United States, calling us all Nazis and everything else. 16 mil a year. That is just 24 seasons. He probably wasn't making 16 the entire time, obviously, but for 20, oh my God, that is absolutely insane. Anyway, let's just rewind for just a moment. And what was, you know, we've made fun of him on this show for years now and mocked all of the things he did around COVID and all the things he's done around calling us all Nazis and all that. But what was the straw that finally broke the back with the affiliates? Well, it was this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
Okay, so first off, I'll try to give the devil, I can't even believe I'm going to go this far with this guy. Was Trump's response there a little bizarre? The death of your friend, and you start talking about building the new construction wing? It was. But Trump is grieving in his own way, whatever that is. And if he didn't feel like talking about it, that's fine. Put that aside, he makes some jokes about that. The line, of course, that this is really about is that he tried to pin this on a Trump supporter because that fits his narrative. That's what he has done with absolutely everything. And he desperately wanted, one of the sick, twisted parts of everything that we have to go through as a nation all the time is that depending on who kills who and the color of the skin of the person that killed this person and the color of the skin or the religion or the race or whatever, or the political beliefs of the person who got killed, then it gets us all in our own political bubbles. And that's tough. But Jimmy Kimmel, there was no evidence at all that this guy was a Trump supporter, this Tyler Robinson. And now we know it sounds like he was far closer to a radical trans activist who was activated once he went to college and then met this trans person that he was living with than anything close to a Trump supporter. So anyway, he has no right to a TV show. We will get to that in just a moment. But listen to this from the New York Post regarding his response now. Absolutely effing livid, one producer told the outlet about how Kimmel took the news, adding that the pissed late-night host is meeting with the network. This is clearly the government overreaching. There's no such thing as free speech in America if the government can lean on companies to stop any content they don't like. Jimmy is pissed over the decision to suspend him and the show, and he isn't going to take this lightly as he is actively looking for ways to get out of his contract, one source says, with another insisting they've never seen Kimmel this angry. Okay, so let's try, as I always try, to do this in the most honest way possible. Jimmy Kimmel, again, we all know this, is not a particularly good comic. He has had that show with a huge staff and a huge budget. I don't know that they were running in the red the way that Colbert was. Colbert, what was it, $100 million budget, and they were losing $20 million a year? So like, why, if you're a business, at the end of the day, these places are businesses, why would you keep Colbert? And Colbert, like Kimmel, was just a partisan leftist hack, right? We know that, okay. So I don't know what the finances are. I'm sure we're gonna find out a little bit more about Kimmel, but I'm guessing it was not being bled the way that Colbert was. That's one part. But every corporation, every company has a right to decide whether you're a TV station or you sell hot dogs or whatever. You have a right to decide what your employees do. And if their behavior is not in line with whatever your values are, you don't have to keep them as employees. And clearly, the country has so shifted in these 8 days that emotions are so raw that for him to go up, it's one thing when for all these years he's lied about all of us and all the COVID stuff and he's lied. Okay, he's a comic, he's a partisan. It is what it is. It's like, man, could we just resurrect Johnny Carson? Like, I'll put in some cash for that. You dig up Johnny Carson's bones and we reanimate him. Like, that's the show that I would watch. But okay, fine. He's been a partisan all these years. That's fine. Did he cross a line here in the midst of the biggest political assassination in, say, 30 plus years, lie about who did it because it fit his thing, and then the affiliates, the network is one version of it, and then the local affiliates decide what gets on air. So if there's a local affiliate somewhere, and we'll have more on St. Clair in just a second because they handle the affiliates. If there's a local affiliate somewhere that, they're in charge of their little area, wherever that might be in the middle of the country, and they're like, you know what? That actually was a bridge too far with this guy. We're not going to put him on. Now, it's not an affront to Jimmy Kimmel's free speech. This has nothing to do with the First Amendment. No one has a right to a television show. I would suppose I would like a television. Not really. This is pretty great, but like, you get it. Nobody has a right to it. If the government was literally showing up at his house in Los Angeles and arresting him for what he said, that would be a problem. But companies can decide if they want to employ people, right? That's how it works. A bit more on what's going on with Sinclair Broadcasting Group, who handles the affiliates. This from Colin Rugg. New Sinclair Broadcasting Group will air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk during Jimmy Kimmel's now canceled time slot on Friday. Sinclair's ABC stations to air a special in remembrance of Charlie Kirk during Jimmy Kimmel Live slot on Friday. Awesome. Okay. So the affiliates are making their decision. Now, that'll be a one-off show that they'll do this. Who knows what they'll do now? For all we know, they'll offer 10 different comics a chance to guest host. You know, when Johnny Carson was on his way out, this is around 1992 he left, so, you know, early 90s, when they knew he was aging out, basically. You know, they were going to hand it to Leno, that was likely, and then they thought maybe they'd hand it to Letterman. Before that, it was Joan Rivers. Like, you can test people. There were plenty of other people. I'm sure Chevy Chase probably guest hosted, and Billy Crystal. Like, you can now test this. If they think that slot is worthy of having these largely antiquated, bloated budget shows, they could test a bunch of comics. You know what, ABC? I'll do it for free for one night if you want to just see if I can read off a teleprompter like he can. I'm pretty sure I can. So what is it that led Jimmy Kimmel to this? Because the thing is, it's not, I suppose, yeah, I think this is right. Had Jimmy Kimmel had just like a basic decent track record over the last 20 years where he was just like poking fun at everybody and it was a little of this, a little of that, you know, you got what his opinions were. He was probably a Hollywood lefty, but it wasn't just so over the top all the time. I think there's a chance that this one particular joke that was so deeply twisted politically for political motives, I think there's a chance it would have slid. However, we know that he has a long track record of being on the wrong side and kind of endorsing violence and calling for people to die and much more, but don't take my word for it. Here's Jimmy Kimmel in January of 2025, so this is less than a year ago. You may remember when all of the good, decent, tolerant lefties were burning down Tesla charging stations because they didn't like the man who was cutting the budget of the United States government. And here's Jimmy Kimmel calling for more attacks on Tesla stations.
Our co-president, Elon Musk, sent a SpaceX vehicle to bring the astronauts back, and when they landed, he fired them immediately upon landing. Tesla stock is way down, almost disastrously so. People have been vandalizing Tesla vehicles, new Tesla vehicles. Please don't vandalize, don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles. And so...
like, not funny? And why is the joke, yes, go out and commit acts of domestic terror? There's a lot of, the fact that they even applaud, people are attacking Teslas, and they're like, yes, you idiots, aren't you guys the ones that are supposed to care about the environment? Just ridiculous. But that one pales in comparison when he called for people who don't get the COVID vaccine to die.
Hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Yeah, that guy turned out to be right, you worthless prick. Also, here he is in blackface.
And here, Karl Malone whole thing. Why they call it diabetes? That get people all riled up. That's what Karl Malone say, change name diabetes to live beaties.
It's not even a good Karl Malone impression. John Stockton should have never sat for that shit. Okay, so look, you know my feelings. Not a great comic. This is not a free speech issue, right? He can do whatever he wants right now. Jimmy, we just posted it on Twitter right before the show. I did a 1-minute little promo for you to try to show you how you can run an online show. Yeah, you're not going to have what was the budget on the show? Let's see if we can find out. You're not going to have the $100 million budget. You're not going to have, 50 people and 20 people doing your makeup and all that shit, but you'll be okay. The government is not knocking on your door. I thought this was interesting from N Wokeness on Twitter. Colbert canceled by CBS. Jim Acosta canceled by CNN. Joy Reid canceled by MSNBC. Don Lemon canceled by CNN. Chris Cuomo canceled by CNN. Jimmy Kimmel canceled by ABC. We're truly living in a new cultural era. Now, I want to make note there because we've been talking about cancel culture forever now, right? And cancel culture, to me, these people are not a victim of cancel culture. Cancel culture really was when someone was being unjustly mobbed, usually in the case of a comment that happened out of context in the past. And we saw this happen with teachers and parents. And we saw this all through COVID and all the rest of it. These people largely, could you put that list up again? These people were canceled if that's the word we're using, for not being particularly good at their job. Stephen Colbert, again, losing $20 million a year to do his quote unquote comedy show. Jim Acosta was a pure propagandist for CNN. Joy Reid was probably the most racist person on television. Yes, you can make the Sonny Hostin argument. Don Lemon, it's not even worth talking about him, like utter clown. Chris Cuomo, who lied repeatedly during COVID and running cover for his brother and everything else. And now Jimmy Kimmel. So anyway, I think that's worth noting because there's a certain set of people that are like, oh, you guys are all into cancel culture now. And that's very different than, say, a parent who's like, you know, I don't want my daughter to be beat up by a 15-year-old boy in wrestling, and then they try to make sure that she loses her job, right? So that is what I would say cancel culture is. Wow, is that right? Kimmel had around $100 million budget for his show. I've got these guys for lunch. They're having 2-for-1 Shake Shack burgers over here. It's just insane. Here's a bit from Donald Trump on Truth Social. Great news for America. The ratings challenge Jimmy Kimmel show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel had zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. Is that true? That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers on fake news NBC. Their ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC. President Donald J. Trump. Look, so you can absolutely make the argument Trump should probably just sit this one out now and whatever. Do we want to live in a country where you can make fun of the president? Obviously. Do we want to be able to make fun of each other and all of those things? Sure. Did Jimmy Kimmel have a track record of doing the most awful things, literally calling for the death of people because they didn't get COVID shots, instigating violence, like wink, wink. I mean, that's what he did, right, with the eyebrows, of go ahead and burn down some Tesla stations, and then quite literally lying about the murder, the assassin in the biggest political murder in the last 3 decades. Yeah, so it's like, do you just deserve to have that $100 million budget and $16 million a year? Probably not, but the Democrats, this is what the Democrats do. If somebody's not good, but he's on their side, they will always freak out. Here is Chuck Schumer.
Senator Schumer, your reaction to this?
It is outrageous. It's a page right out of Xi's playbook. This is just despicable, disgusting, and against democratic values. Trump and his allies seem to want to shut down speech that they don't like to hear. That is not what democracies do. That is what autocracies do. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with Kimmel or not. He has the right to free speech. And so it is just outrageous. It is indicative of autocracy. And I am just outraged by it. Again, this is what dictators do. This is what Xi would do. This is what Putin would do. We are not that country.
All right, first off, Chuck, I will give you credit. You're actually wearing your glasses where they're supposed to be. You normally are doing this and whatever. So, okay, that was very impressive. Maybe you've been watching the show and taking glasses advice. That's one thing. Number two, this has nothing to do with free speech. You know what would happen in China under Xi? They would arrest the guy. Is Jimmy Kimmel being arrested for being a shitty comic? No. All Jimmy Kimmel has to do today is go to youtube.com. I would recommend Rumble, actually. Rumble.com. Sign up now. Create an account. And if Jimmy Kimmel has a webcam on his computer, he could do a show like this. So nothing has happened here, but they have to ratchet up the fear. Do you think Donald Trump called the local affiliates and was like, I've had it with this guy, you better get rid of him? Or did they actually make a decision? Did they make a decision? If you can prove to me, Chuck, but you can't, that the government put pressure on the affiliates to get rid of this guy, then we have a different situation, because that would be an actual violation. But a company making a decision to not work with a guy who is a complete and utter prick, who has instigated a hell of a lot of hate in this country, not a problem. That's not exactly how they see it over on MSNBC and CNN.
The news about Jimmy Kimmel, I think, is a pretty watershed moment. I think we all need to be talking about. We actually, and it's not just a media story. I know you agree with me on this. It's not just a media story. It's a democracy story. It's a freedom of speech story. It's so many things. And I've been thinking a lot today about how I lived through years of answering questions from a lot of these network journalists, people who ask tough questions. Sometimes I was pissed off at them. That's part of what we do. And this is threatening that.
Even though we're talking about comedy, this is so serious, Aaron. Yeah. America is a less free place if late night comedians cannot do and say what they want. Of course, they can be tuned out. People can change the channel. That's how we vote. That's how we have our say in America. But this really does have a chilling effect across the American media. And it's not just me saying it. We've heard from the group FIRE in the past few minutes, the free speech group FIRE, saying, quote, the government pressured ABC and ABC caved.
Talk about what was the comment that got Jimmy Kimmel in trouble. It was not about the murder. Yeah. It was about he was criticizing, he was mocking the president and the president's political movement, MAGA. So what we have here is the administration cracking down on someone for criticizing them.
My pen is going to run out of ink here. First off, that man who was caught masturbating on a Zoom call, why does he have a job? Okay, there's a lot of lawyers out there. Why? CNN, he literally jerked off on a Zoom call with colleagues. They fired him temporarily, and they were like, what were they like? Can we not find any other lawyers here? That, like, he's such a talent. That guy's so talented. If any of you, all right, that's one thing. Then he lied. He absolutely lied in what he said there, Tubin. He wasn't mocking MAGA. The joke wasn't mocking MAGA. The joke was applying the death to MAGA. That's what it was doing. That's different than mocking MAGA, you midwit. That's all right. So that's one thing. Then Psaki, who's sitting there with that guy who looks like a Muppet who's holding in a fart. Look at him. Look at him. He's just a Muppet. I am telling you, he is a Muppet. That is not a real person. He is a Muppet holding in a giant fart. And Psaki, you are a government actress. That's all you are. You worked for the government. Your job was to lie. You were not particularly good at it, but you were good enough to then get a job on MSNBC to then pretend you're a journalist as if you have none of the opinions that you were lying about in the first place. So I'm not going to pay much attention to you people. And by the way, both of you won't have jobs much longer either. But again, you can go to rumble.com, sign up now and create an account and have a show in a minute, and the government will not come knocking at your door, you Muppet moron. And this, all right. It's good. Now I feel like I'm getting back. It's been a rough week. Okay. This guy who banged a Chinese spy and probably should be in jail, Eric Swalwell, congressman. Listen to this nonsense.
Congressman, I see you are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He, every night, has a right to come into any house that wants to watch.
I damn well am wearing this baseball cap because I'm a tough guy, and Jimmy Kimmel has a right to be on television. No, nobody has a right to be on television. Putting aside that they're the public airwaves and the public ultimately actually can decide, nobody has a right to it. I have a talk show. I would have liked for many, many years to have been on television. I don't really want to be on television anymore. You don't have a right to it. He has a right to make $16 million and lie about who murdered who. And I'm wearing a cap, for God's sakes. So fucking pathetic. How about some info from the Federal Communications Commission? The FCC prohibits broadcasting false information about a crime or catastrophe if the broadcaster knows the information is false and will cause substantial public harm if aired. The FCC is prohibited by law from engaging in censorship or infringing on First Amendment rights of the press. It is, however, illegal for broadcasters to intentionally distort the news, and the FCC may act on complaints if there's documented evidence of such behavior from persons with direct personal knowledge. So, did he lie 100% about who the shooter was? Well, the only way you could view it is he either did, well, first off, he's reading off a teleprompter, so does he even know what he's saying? Like, who the hell knows, right? But it's about Jimmy Kimmel. His name is in the show, in the title. So he either knew he was lying or he didn't care. Now, or he was completely misinformed. Now, can you pull up the first line there? Because the first line is the key again. Can you just give me that first line again there? The FCC prohibits broadcasting false information about a crime or catastrophe if the broadcaster knows the information is false. Okay, so if he knew and the producers knew, then it is a violation of the FCC. Now, you might make the argument that the FCC shouldn't even exist anymore, and when they created the FCC, there was a very controlled television airwaves and radio, and that's it. And now there's the internet Wild West, so it's very antiquated to be able to regulate. The government's regulating very tightly television airwaves while this thing's completely unregulated, and as it should be. Oh my God, it's so crazy. We can just speak to the people. How wild. But anyway, the point is he may have outright violated FCC regulations. That is just a fact. But these people have all been doing this. This is what the mainstream media has done. And they show no remorse ever about any of it. Do you remember back in October of 2024, I was at a Nazi rally.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally, a rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners.
Yes, that is true, the second part, I suppose, but none of that happened at that rally where literally I posted a picture on Twitter. I was sitting about 5 rows away from an Orthodox Jew wearing a yarmulke and a woman in a burqa. They were both there. There were American flags everywhere. There were religious Jews. It was just, there were black people, white people, cats and dogs. And you guys told us that it was a Nazi rally. My favorite part of the Nazi rally was when the music came on and we were dancing. Best Nazi rally ever. Okay, so let's just sum up what we've been going through over the last couple of years. Do you guys remember when my good friend Roseanne Barr was canceled from the #1 sitcom in America, Roseanne? Yeah, remember Roseanne? She had how many years of her original sitcom? I think probably about 12 years of her original sitcom. It was #1 for many years, booted The Cosby Show, which people thought could never happen back in the late 80s, early 90s. They brought the show back. She was obviously on the right at the time, hanging out with some conservatives, that sort of thing. She makes one tweet, a joke, a complete joke, and they fired her. They continued the show. The show just wrapped up. They renamed it The Connors, and all of her cast members should be utterly embarrassed that they let her go down, and they kept that show going, but I know that the money's good, I guess. And they get rid of Roseanne. Thankfully, Roseanne is more outspoken than ever, but it was one tweet, and then they got rid of her. From ABC, by the way, so same network. I'm guessing Jen Psaki and Farting Muppet and the rest of them didn't say jack shit about that. Let's also not forget when Gina Carano was dropped from The Mandalorian and because she basically said one tweet saying, stop calling us all Nazis. We could also remember when Megyn Kelly was fired from NBC program because she said that Santa was white, which basically he pretty much is. That's not racist. If you want to be a black Santa, that's fine too. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So they have spent so much capital and so much time destroying people, going after all of the wrong people, calling us racist and everything else. But now they're going to stand up and defend the guy who literally lied about the shooting. And again, I'm not saying it's up to the affiliates, it's up to the network, but this has nothing to do with the First Amendment. Jimmy can still speak. He probably shouldn't, but he can. Let's talk about Be Better Now. We'll have more on the other side. If you or your partner is over 55 and dealing with bladder urgency, you know it's more than just a minor inconvenience. Trips, outings, and travels start to feel like they're all about finding the bathroom. And when one of you has a hard time, you both feel it. That's why so many people have turned to Betterman and Better Woman. These are clinically tested formulas trusted by thousands for more than 25 years. They help reduce urgency, cut down frequent trips, and support deeper, more restful sleep. All natural with no known side effects. They also give you something just as important: more confidence, more control, and more freedom to enjoy life together. Get them at BeBetterNow.com. That's BeBetterNow.com. And for our listeners, you'll get 10% off your first order with code Rubin10. Live fully with confidence and control. Okay, let me throw to, we're not even going to use our Scott and the Retards bumper because I think I've got a lot of it out today. Actually, this is the first time maybe since Charlie died that I actually feel like myself again. This is Scott Jennings trying to explain what free speech on the airwaves is to some of the people over at CNN.
You use the phrase propaganda, Professor, and I just have to ask you, what do you consider what Jimmy Kimmel was doing every night or what Stephen Colbert was doing by having on only Democratic guests? Jimmy Kimmel Monday night flat lied about the shooter. Back in the spring, he egged his audience on in cheering on the violence against and wanting, kind of wishing, I think, the downfall of a publicly traded company, Tesla. Do you consider that to be propaganda? Is it good for a business?
Do you consider that to be free speech, Scott?
You use the phrase propaganda.
I'm asking you. You used the words free speech before. Do you consider that free speech?
I consider it to be speech, and he's obviously free to say it.
Will you defend that speech in this country that will defend to the death the speech of others? Will you defend Jimmy Kimmel's speech?
Do I defend Jimmy Kimmel going on television and saying that a shooter from the left?
You defend his right to do so.
He has a right to do so, but he does not have a right to have a television show where he lies his ass off to the American people and attacks half this country on a nightly basis.
Whoa.
Yes, that is the point. Of course he has a right to do it. Now, interestingly, the one about the Tesla thing where he basically winks and go out there and blow those things up, that one actually, could you consider that a call to violence? He's a comic. Okay, so you let it slide. But that one gets kind of close to where it's actually not protected free speech. Is he technically allowed to lie about who the shooter is that killed Charlie? As a private citizen, yes, that is protected free speech. Now, we just read you the regulations of the FCC, so if he knowingly did it, then it is an FCC violation. But these people that Scott is debating with there, they would never be taking this position. And again, at the end of the day, these things mostly come down to finances. This is what the beauty of capitalism is. Getting rid of Jimmy Kimmel, guess what? These shows are on at 11:35, right? So at 11:35, that means there are going to be some people tonight, because the Charlie thing will air tomorrow night at 11:35. But that means there are going to be some people tonight that at 11:35, the local news have turned off. And they're going to go, my God, what do I do now? And you know what they're going to do? Oh, look at this little magical light box in my hand. I have access to the whole world. And there's a button. And on the button, I can send it to the big screen over there and I can watch everything I do. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, guys. But let's continue. And this is now we're going to shift off the media part for just a second. Barack Obama, who... The fact that I was a lefty, I voted for this guy, I should be judged accordingly one day. He's a horrible, horrible human being. And in retrospect, so much of the strife and division has come from him. And here he is giving a speech yesterday talking about Charlie's beliefs, although I don't think he really understands what Charlie's beliefs are.
I disagree with the idea that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a mistake. That's not me politicizing the issue. It's making an observation about who are we as a country. I can say that I disagree with the suggestion that my wife or Justice Jackson does not have adequate brain processing power. I can say that I disagree that Martin Luther King was awful. I can disagree with some of the broader suggestions of that liberals and Democrats are promoting a conspiracy to displace whites and replace them.
Okay, got to be careful here. Don't want well, I'm not on television, so the FCC can't come after me. But Barack, first off, you're misconstruing virtually everything he said, like you do, and as they applaud for you. First off, the fact that you feel the need to go up there. And I don't know what the question was. So I don't know if the question was, how do you feel about Charlie's death or anything else? But this thing where they have to say, my guess is what he did was nobody should be killed and blah, blah, blah. And that's the lowest common, that's low bar nothing. That's like if we have to even bother saying that, the ship has already sailed. You're not allowed to kill other people for their beliefs, whatever they might be in the United States of America in a free society. You don't have to do that qualification. But my guess is he probably did that. But then what he really had to do is offer catnip to the base. And the catnip to the base is basically implying that Charlie was somehow evil or racist or anything else. So that we can just do a few of them. So at the end there, that the Democrats want to replace people with illegals. And that he, of course, makes it about white people. But that is true. That is true. Many of us have come around to that conclusion. Elon talks about it all the time. They bring in people so that they will become dependent on the state and thus they will, and the state is really run by the Democrats. Like, that's not a crazy conspiracy. Also, arguing around the 1964 Civil Rights Act, there is arguments to be made that maybe it shouldn't have been passed. If you wanted private places to be able to decide whether they will serve a certain person or not, well, then you leave it to the free market. I'm not even making that argument, but you can make a clear libertarian argument that if somebody just wants to open up a diner and the diner is just for white people, if they would like to operate, most people don't. Most people go into business to make money. So most people aren't like, I make great flapjacks and I'm going to open up a diner and I'm only going to serve white people my delicious pancakes. Most people don't do that. But you could make an ethical argument saying that someone should have every right to do that. And then, by the way, you'd have a right to boycott it or expose them or anything else. But he just says 1964 Civil Rights Act as if automatically that means Charlie's racist. It's just utter nonsense. What were one or two of the other ones that he did? Oh, and then somehow implying that he thought Martin Luther King was awful. I've never heard that. But all of this to say no one should be listening to Barack Obama. Oh, that women are dumb. Like, no, Charlie never said that. He was talking about the fact that if you go out of your way to hire women who are less qualified because they are women, hint, hint, Kamala Harris, that might not be a great idea. Over time, that will degrade an entire system. Everyone knows this. Everyone knows, well, Democrats, which is half the country, so I guess not. But nobody should be listening to a word Barack Obama says. He is he's a great orator, but he is an absolute liar. Do you remember what Barack Obama did 2 days before the election?
Why would you place your faith in somebody who instituted a so-called Muslim ban, who sat down for pleasantries with Holocaust deniers, who said that there were very fine people on both sides of a white supremacist rally?
Okay, so-called Muslim ban didn't include something like 8 of the most populous Muslim states. It was very targeted as to states that had to deal, countries that had to deal with, that were exporting terrorists. That's one thing. But of course, the point is the very fine people thing. Barack Obama went on stage 2 days before the election and lied. He lied. So what would be the most generous thing you could say about Barack Obama in that moment? He just didn't know. He somehow didn't know that the biggest hoax of all time that has been exposed over and over and over again, that we were all doing online for years. What was the sentence that he was talking about? Very fine people on both sides of the debate about what you do with statues. In this case, the Robert E. Lee statue. You guys all know this. And what was the next line that he said? The white supremacists and neo-Nazis should be condemned totally. Okay, so Barack Obama is just a complete fucking moron. He might be. So that would be the most generous thing I could say. Barack Obama lives in such a bubble. He's such a complete out of touch moron that he had no idea what he was saying up there. Or, and I'm going to say this one's probably a little more true, he's a propagandist and a liar. And he gave a speech 2 days before the election to basically say Donald Trump's a Nazi. That was what he was really trying to say. But the thing is, with someone like Barack Obama, it's like, how can they get away with it? Like, how did he have the thought when he was giving that speech, when they hand him the speech, and he reads off a teleprompter well, I'll give him that. You see the guy without a teleprompter, it ain't pretty. But how does he get to the point where he gets up there and he thinks, man, I can just lie to everybody? Well, it's partly because of what Stephen A. Smith lays out right here.
And sure enough, over the past 60 years or so, a vast majority of African Americans have voted Democrat. We know that if we're doing our homework, we serve to disenfranchise ourselves, because we told the Democratic Party, you got our vote no matter what. We told the Republicans, you ain't getting our vote no matter what. Neither was incentivized to really put forth an effort to give us the representation we deserved. And as a result, we disenfranchised ourselves, but we're not seeing it that way. You got migrants coming to this country that clearly see it that way. Look at the Hispanic population. You got Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Cubans, everything. And you don't know who's going to vote what. So guess what? Both sides are trying to appeal to them, which means they're not being ignored. That's the game. And unfortunately, we as a black community lost our way in that regard. And not only that, it's turned so many other communities off against us because they've said, what are y'all doing? Do you not see that this is working against you?
So Barack Obama knows he can lie to them because of what Stephen A. just laid out right there. We're still going to give you shit. But those mean Republicans, not only are they racist, they're going to take your shit away. And that is inherently the problem. The other problem, I'm going to show you one more clip of Gutfeld. I'm going to get to Gutfeld in a second. I'm going to show you one more of Obama here, is, as I said yesterday, the most important thing right now from a media perspective is to not let them get away with the both sides are equal thing. When I talk about lowest common denominator or just like these low-level arguments, it is the dumbest possible analysis to say both sides are exactly the same, right? It's just they're different things. Republicans and Democrats are different. Conservatives and liberals are different. They are different. They behave differently. They come to conclusions differently. To just say both sides, the rhetoric's exactly the same and they're the same and everything, it's so dumb and it's frankly offensive to anyone that is thinking, but it's perfect food for the Democrats and their, I suppose, purported leader, Barack Obama.
We have to recognize that on both sides, undoubtedly, there are people who are extremists and who say things that are contrary to what I believe are America's core values. But I will say that those extreme views were not in my White House. I wasn't embracing them.
Extraordinary. His level of dishonesty is absolutely incredible. You say things that are contrary to America's values. I don't know, like 2 days before an election, implying that the once and future president is racist and that his supporters are neo-Nazis and very fine people. You are the thing, man. Are we the baddies? That's you. That's you. And there weren't extremists in your White House. Your White House was filled with Islamist, jihad-loving, social justice warrior, woke, racist lunatics. Donald Trump's reversing all of that. That's my opinion about it. But allow Greg Gutfeld to deal with the both sides thing.
I think I have a rule of thumb, though. When they say it's both sides, it's their fault. Because when it's your fault, they just say it's your fault. You follow me? So every time you hear both sides do it, you know they're culpable. Because when it's our fault, they never say that. They just go, it's your fault. So remember that.
Right. Remember that. That's the line. Remember that. Remember the little tricks that they use so that the second something happens, like Charlie Kirk, who is the leader of the young conservative movement, he's not even conservative movement, who's the leader of the young pro-America movement in the country, when he gets assassinated, they automatically want to say it's both sides so that you will be like, well, of course it is both sides, blah, 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 because then you can't really focus on what actually is going on. So what would be one way to deal with this right now? One way to deal with it would be for you, person on the other side of the screen right now, to start speaking up, right? Like, there are a lot of us that are speaking up. I think more and more people are waking up. I think there's a spiritual awakening happening in the country, but it's time, it has been time, it is long time for more of you to speak up as well. We're going to show you about a minute of, it's not my last PragerU video, I've done 4. It's the third one that I did from, I think, 5 years ago, 2020, called The Bravery Deficit.
There's a mass affliction spreading throughout the Western world. It's called the bravery deficit. People, good people like you, are afraid to say what they think. So what can you do? Believe it or not, the solution is not that hard. Step 1, think for yourself. Step 2, say it out loud. The point is, perhaps your most important job as a human being is to stand up for the things you believe in. Don't take the path of least resistance. Be better than those who would silence you, deplatform you, and mob you. How? Just stop being afraid. The mob depends on the fact that everyone is scared to say what they think. Don't give them that power. All of the successes of America and the Western values that gave birth to America are being eroded as we speak. We can't just blame Hollywood, the media, and the political establishment any longer. It's time to look in the mirror. Think of the bravery of your grandparents and your ancestors before them who undoubtedly had it far worse than you do today. If they were brave, then you can be brave too. It's time to come out of the closet, the political one. You are the solution to the bravery deficit. So what are you waiting for?
Okay, so that's just a small portion of the 5-minute video. Let's link to that, guys, in the YouTube description so that people can click the full thing. But that really is the answer here, right? The answer isn't that I'm going to sit up here and yammer about these things or that Steven Crowder or any of these other guys are going to solve all of your problems, right? The answer is that we will all get involved. We acquiesced so much room to these people. We let them lie for so long. We didn't push back hard enough when very fine people happen. We're always on our back. Maybe I am a Nazi. Like we were all doing it all the time. And enough is enough. This is the moment. This is the moment that we better grab Charlie's spirit and fight back the way he did, through words, not with blood. Let's talk about Outskill for a moment, and then we'll have a Locals community Q&A on the other side. Getting rich in 2025 is simpler than most people think. You don't need years of experience or an expensive degree. You can start earning in just weeks. Nearly every job now demands AI skills, and those who master them have a 130% better chance of success. This weekend, join the 2-day AI Mastermind Workshop by Outskill, the world's first AI-focused education platform. In just 16 hours with expert mentors, learners have already built 100 AI products with zero code and created revenue streams of $3,000 to $4,000. I've partnered with Outskill to give away 1,000 free seats exclusively to my viewers for the next 72 hours. That's nearly $900,000 worth of training completely free. Rated 4.9 out of 5 on Trustpilot. It's credible and proven. What makes it different? It's only 16 hours perfect for busy professionals. You also get lifetime access to Outskill's private AI community of 5,000 members. Over 10 million people have already attended. Now it's your turn. In just 2 days, you'll learn 10 powerful AI tools, prompt engineering, automation workflows, and how to build AI products without code. Sign up now and unlock bonuses worth $5,100. It's happening this Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Seats are limited and going fast. Grab your free spot today through the link in the description and pinned comment. All right, let's get to a RubinReport.locals.com community Q&A. I have to tell you guys, I just said to them during the break, this is the first time I feel like I've breathed properly. This feels completely cathartic today. Like we got back to some of the silly stuff and mocking some of these people. It's been an extremely intense 8 days for everybody, and those feelings are not going to go away. And actually, that's directly connected to the first question here, which is from Nimbus. Are you going to be attending Charlie's memorial? Yeah, so Charlie's memorial will be on Sunday. Outside of Phoenix in Glendale, Arizona. I think, do we have the poster? We don't have the poster. We'll try to grab it and show it to you. But President Trump will be speaking. There's going to be a major list of speakers. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the venue holds about 18,000 people. So I will be there. We're coordinating some of the logistical stuff right now. We may try. I don't think I can do a full show from there just because it's going to obviously be, it's going to be very intense, but it's going to be somewhat haywire and everything else. But Phoenix is coming with me. We'll try, maybe we can shoot some interviews or we'll do some stuff on the ground. So stay tuned for all that. But even beyond that, if I don't do any of that, it's just to be there for Charlie. It's as simple as that, and be around so many of the people who loved him and so many people who are in this world that hopefully can maybe pick up a little bit of what Charlie left for us. Glenn says, I haven't heard anyone mention anything about Charlie's family, like parents and siblings, and how they're coping with their terrible loss to their loved one. Have you spoken to any of them? I have not. I actually haven't heard a word about how his parents, you can only imagine. It is literally the worst thing that can happen in the world, right? For a parent to lose their child. It doesn't matter how old that child is, right? It doesn't. It is literally the worst thing. Obviously, we've heard from Erica Kirk. I can only try to imagine those kids. Try to imagine those kids, what they are going through right now, what they understand, what their ability to understand what's going on, and everything else. It is unimaginable. So no, I haven't had any contact with any of them. Maybe some other family member will speak on Sunday. And actually, I think we do have the poster now. So Erica's going to speak, Trump's going to speak, JD's going to speak. You can see the list of people, and I'm sure they'll be adding some. And it's just going to be a very they're calling it building a legacy, remembering Charlie Kirk, and it's just going to be a very, very powerful day. And hopefully 18,000 people in that stadium will be able to touch something that is not really here and now, but somewhere else, and maybe go with that in the future. Lo Brian says, what extra safety precautions will you be taking with your trip to Australia or with any other speaking engagements? I don't want to get into all the specifics of that, obviously, but we are doing certain things, and we're talking to people, and we are adjusting a few things accordingly. It does fundamentally, this is why this is so twisted. What this guy did, and once you say political violence is okay, it fundamentally alters everything. Are we going to have metal detectors at comedy clubs? Comedians say offensive things, wildly offensive things. Comedians heckle the audience, and the audience heckles the comedians back. So Should we have metal detectors there because somebody, the next time Dave Chappelle goes on stage and says something about the trans community or whatever, that he's going to get stabbed or shot? So you're going to have to do that. We do meet and greets. I do meet and greets after my show. We don't pat everybody down on the way. Ben Shapiro said that he's going to be limiting the outdoor events because at some point you can't control all of this, right? It's one thing at an indoor event, you can have metal detectors, but the idea that you'd need metal detectors at these things is already the chilling thing that I was talking about in that PragerU video. Like, that is what the bravery deficit is in some sense. We all start becoming afraid of everything, and then slowly we're like, oh, you need metal detectors to go to the theater. I'm going to the ballet. They're going to pat me down. But at some point we would get to that. So I don't want to get into all the specifics of the things we're doing. We're extremely well armed here, and we've changed some security things here and all that. And we'll do what we have to do on the road. But it's just an unfortunate piece of this. And by the way, it's another way that they can kind of bleed you. No pun intended. Like, once you have to start walking around with security and all those things, like, you then have to raise more money. You have to make more money to pay for it. I think she's talked about this publicly, but my good friend and one of the most incredible free speech warriors in the country, literally in the world, I should say, is Ayaan Hirsi Ali. And she has to walk around everywhere she goes with multiple security guards. And I've gone out to dinner with her, and she has to sit in certain positions in the restaurant because there's a jihadist threat against her. Well, she has to pay for that. It's just, there's so many layers here. It's just, yeah. Mitchell says, how is the right any different if we begin rejoicing in the fall of these lefties? I'm glad you asked this question. I fear sometimes that we may be more like them than we think we are. I hope the imprint Charlie has left on our souls leaves us with more grace than anger. Okay, so first let me deal with the grace and anger part. I'm completely with you on that. I think that's been illustrated over everything that I have done since Charlie's assassination. Today, I finally got back to a little sarcasm and humor and all that. But I'm really trying not to feel the impulse of hatred and anger right now. When I went on Piers Morgan on Friday and I just basically took down Cenk because he was screaming about he was literally screaming, we should have peace, we should have peace. And it's like, dude, here are the receipts of what you've called Trump and Charlie, Nazi, 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 fascist, fascist. Like, I didn't do it with anger. I actually did it with like, well, we got to get past some of this shit. Now, he didn't respond to it that way and had an awful lot of anger. I've really tried. There's a lot of fighting going on online, and you can sort of feel right now, everyone gave it like a 2 or 3 day grace period. And now the fighting and the anger is starting to bubble up, right? And I'm really, really trying not to be part of that. But as to your previous point, which is that we want to think we're better than them, but maybe we shouldn't be rejoicing in some of these things. Say, like, I think you're referring to the cancellation of Jimmy. Well, I tried to lay out here today why this isn't the equivalent, right? This is not the equivalent of what they did with cancel culture, right? So in some sense, am I rejoicing that Jimmy Kimmel is gone? Well, this is a guy who has done, I think, real damage to the cultural fabric of America. And clearly, with clips that we laid out today between COVID and slightly endorsing terrorism and lying about this assassination, like, he doesn't deserve the job he has. So I try to lay that out with like some humor, but also like, here's what this guy has done. And I also tried to elucidate the fact that this is not a free speech issue, right? But you're right. Could we all probably be a bit better? And do we always have to make sure we don't become as hysterical as them and rejoice in the destruction of everyone who's against us? Yes, it is something that is always on my mind, and it will continue to be on my mind. Let's talk about 120 Life for a minute, and we'll have more questions on the other side. Did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? 1 in 2 adults have it, a 50-50 chance you're a walking time bomb. But here's the good news. You have the power to take control with 120 Life. It's a delicious blend of superfruit juices shown to help naturally lower blood pressure. Formulated with proven ingredients, 120 Life is trusted by over 1,000 health professionals and people just like you who've seen real measurable results. If you don't see results in 2 weeks, you'll get your money back, so you have nothing to lose but those high numbers. Try it risk-free with their 2-week trial. Just go to 120life.com and use code Rubin to save 15%. Watch your numbers drop and feel the difference. All right, a couple other questions here. Sally says, it looks like the Charlie Kirk show plans to have hosts rotating in lieu of Charlie. Will you be a guest host to pay respects and pick up the mantle for Charlie? I would be absolutely honored to do it. I know they went with the Daily Wire guys. They had the vice president do it. I think Glenn Beck did it yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. I'd be happy to throw my name into the list. I haven't gotten a call, but I'd genuinely be honored to do it. So, you know, they know how to find me. Max, here we'll shift topics for a second. Does Clyde have a favorite toy? I think we have a picture of Clyde with his new favorite toy. Yes, it is Halloween, and we are huge on Halloween in this house. There's a lot of Halloween decorations. We're a little early on it, I suppose, but we're moving into Halloween right now. The kids are so into Ghostbusters right now. It's absolutely insane. We are hunting ghosts in my house constantly. And yes, that is Clyde's new jack-o'-lantern toy. And Clyde is doing well. You know what he did? Did I even tell you guys? A couple of days ago, my sister came over with her 3 kids. We got a whole bunch of pizzas, like little pizzas for everybody, you know, like 12 inchers. There were probably about 10 of them for everybody that we had here. And there were 2 full pizzas left. And Clyde ate 2 full pizzas and puked his brains out and showed no remorse. And he will do it again. That's what they do. Joe says, is there a way for the left to repair themselves in light of Charlie's murder? And if they toned the rhetoric down, should the right forgive? Well, that's a great question. So is there any way for them to do it? I would like there to be a way to do it. It is why, actually, I did what I did with Cenk on Piers Morgan. It is nice for people to say, boy, we should all tone down the rhetoric. It is nice for people to say we should come together. It is nice for people to say we shouldn't murder each other. But if you're one of the people that has been screaming we're all Nazis, then you have to have a mea culpa. You have to say for a moment, you know, I had a little something to do with this. Maybe Donald Trump's not a Nazi. Maybe I shouldn't have called all his supporters Nazis, because maybe that then, you know, increased the temperature to the point that something like this might happen. So is there any reason to believe that the progressive wing, which has now taken over the Democrat Party, is there any reason that they will turn around right now? My sad answer to that is no. The progressives, over the years, they had so many chances to turn around or look in the mirror and see what they did. When Trump was elected the first time, they might have looked in the mirror and said, boy, were we so nuts that Donald Trump got elected, right? Like, they might have done that, but they haven't. There has been no, in a weird way, every time they lose, it is further proof, or something goes against them, it's further proof that they're the victim in all of this, and they must double down. So I think ultimately the progressive wing is going to get much worse. I think you are going to see more and more, actually, over time. You're going to see more and more of them support political violence and much more. Now, the good liberals, as you know, the remaining few liberals who consider themselves Democrats, and it's basically Fetterman and Bill Maher and your aunt, they are welcome on the MAGA side of things, but I just see no reason to think that they will moderate. I mean, the other evidence of that would be, look what's going on CNN, look what's going on MSNBC and elsewhere. Right? They're the victims now. Jimmy Kimmel got canceled. It's an attack on free speech. So they're not going to be like, okay, now we're aligning with Trump, or now we're going to think about things a little bit differently. No, they're the victims now. And there ain't nothing they love more than being the victims. And we will end with something completely unrelated to politics or anything else. Lewis says, you mentioned you wrapped up The Sopranos. Have you watched anything new lately? Well, when I was on the flight back from New York, I really, really needed to get my mind off of everything. And, so what did I watch? The Godfather, because I needed to get away from drama, I suppose, which I've seen a million times. But if you haven't seen The Godfather lately, it might be the best movie of all time. Like, it's so exquisitely done and beautifully shot and brilliant, and the twists and turns and the acting, it's just absolutely wonderful. As for what we're watching now, so we finished Sopranos. You know, we're watching on Apple TV, we're watching Murderbot with Skarsgård. What's his name? What's the guy's first name? What's his first name? Bill. Is it Bill? Bill Skarsgård? He was in True Blood, the guy from True Blood who's in, and he plays like this half robot, half human. It's kind of a comedy, futuristic. They're going from planet to planet. Alexander Skarsgård, thanks. And it's like, it's 24 minutes each. It's kind of, whatever. It's fine. It's not great. I've been falling asleep at the end, although, you know, obviously my brain is fried at the end of the day. And then we're watching Alien Earth. And I loved the Alien movies. I loved Prometheus. I loved Alien Covenant was great. I love all the Alien movies. Alien Earth, it's like, I'm kind of there. I don't know. I watch Seinfeld at night. That's it, and I'm very happy. And then that's it. Like, it's just it's one of the few ways I can get my brain to shut off. But I'm open to some suggestions. If you've got some, let me know in Locals. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Tomorrow's show, which will be our Friday panel, it's going to be a really good one. We have Isabel Brown, who was not only a friend of, well, she's my friend. She was a friend of Charlie, but worked at Turning Point for years, and she's just an absolutely lovely human being. So we will honor Charlie through Isabel, who also I will see on Sunday at the memorial, and Andy No, who, of course, as you guys know, is an absolute expert in the leftist radical mindset. I mean, this is the guy that's been exposing more of the Antifa, or what he calls Trantifa, because there is this weird connection between just straight up Antifa and then the trans part of it. So we're gonna have the two of them on, and hopefully that'll be a nice way to set everybody off for the weekend. So thanks for watching. Reminder, Australia in October. That is all. Goodbye.